Greetings, it's Tegan from the Haunting Podcast. If you're brave enough, hit the subscribe button and the bell icon so you don't miss a single spooky episode. And now, back to the spooky and ooky. Hello, and welcome back to the Haunting Podcast. I'm your host, Tegan.
And I'm Jordan.
Today, we have some stories that didn't really fit into a theme. They just creeped me out.
So just creepy shit.
It is just creepy stories from Reddit. I ran across the question, what is the creepiest thing that has ever happened to you?
Ooh.
And honestly, a lot of these gave me goosebumps. There was a lot of really good ones in here.
Always good. Always good. We like our creepy stories.
I don't really want to do this right before I have to go to bed. But here we are. I'm
It's
ready.
the best.
I'm ready for some nightmare fuel. So let's get right into it. We're going to start off with a story from JohnQuickToes. While at university, I lived directly next to a portable haunted cemetery in what is considered one of the most haunted cities in the country. The odd part about my living situation is that the basement apartment I stayed in was uniquely below the cemetery, so you could see the tombstones at about eye level from the windows. Immediately no.
Nope. I'm good on that one.
Could you
Definitely
imagine?
good.
Could you imagine like getting to university and just going into the room that you were assigned and that's what you see?
Immediately call my parents. Hey, I tried.
I would be requesting a new room so fast.
So would I. For real.
One night during the winter, I woke up freezing cold as my sheets had fallen off of my futon, sleeping on the floor. That's in parentheses. I don't know if he was sleeping on the floor, if the futon was on the floor. I don't really get that part, but either way.
I slept on the floor a lot.
Did you?
Oh yeah, in college and the sidewalk.
Could never be me. I'm too spoiled. I rolled over to grab it and realized that there was a man standing and looking out of the window not 4 feet away from me. I can't.
It's just not a good experience.
I could see the detail of his face as clear as day, as there was a floodlight through the slats of my blinds. He had glasses and a mustache and appeared to be in his mid-40s.
Always good. Now it's a creeper.
You
Okay,
know,
always good.
honestly, at this point, I wouldn't know if it was a ghost or just a peeping Tom.
Who knows at this point?
I'm not sure why, but this didn't freak me out. And I must have chalked it up to thinking I was dreaming because I grabbed the sheet and went back to sleep without a thought.
Now that couldn't be me. There's just no way I would have fallen asleep. No way.
You know what that reminds me of? Do you remember the one time in our old apartment I woke up and I went to the bathroom and I came back and I said I saw a shadow figure and I was like, I don't have time for this. And I just went back to sleep.
Who has time for this? I do remember, unfortunately.
Except I didn't see the detail of their face. A few hours later, I woke up again to find my sheets were missing, but this time it was about 30 feet away in my kitchen, which is visible from where I sleep. The man was now standing and staring the opposite way towards the cemetery, and this time I really paid attention. I sat up and said hello to no response. After...
Jeez.
This episode really does have me in my heebie-jeebies. After staring at him standing there for what seemed to be minutes, he moved out of sight in a very odd manner, which could only be described as sliding on ice. Okay, I don't know how this person ever slept again. I really don't. Not in this apartment.
There's no way. I never would have.
A half an hour after sitting and staring and saying hello to the room, I finally mustered up the courage to flip on my lights and go to the kitchen to retrieve my sheets. And to confirm, yep, nobody was in my apartment with me. The entire situation was bizarre. I didn't feel any fear at all, just confusion. I would just like everyone to be aware that the second time this person woke up, the man staring at them was in the apartment, looking the opposite way.
That's terrible.
I'm not doing that.
I wouldn't do it either.
I'm not
No
doing
way.
this. No, I'm moving. I'm not even staying the rest of that. I'm sleeping in my car.
I'm dropping out.
Yeah, bye. Goodbye, sir. But that was that story. I hope everyone enjoyed that one, because I did not.
I enjoyed it. I thought it was very nice.
I'm glad, honey.
And that's why I have another creepy story for you.
Oh, great.
This one by OMalleyTheAlleyPuss. What a great name.
Oh, dear. Okay.
I was walking home one night from my grandmother's house. We lived in a village in rural Ireland. Granny's house was on the outskirts of the village, so I had to walk up a narrow country lane to get to Granny's house and back down the lane to get to the village. My granddad was dying and the priest was giving him his last rites. He pulled through the night and my granny told me to go home and get a bit of rest. I reluctantly agreed and walked home. Down the country lane I have been walking on since I was a boy. Only this time it seemed weird in some way, almost eerie, and I never get spooked. I pushed the feeling to the side as my mind was in shock about Granddad.
Fair enough.
I was walking toward the bottom of the lane when I noticed a blur of white down the bottom of the lane beside one of the farmer's gates to the field beside my grandparents' house. I thought it was a lamb that had escaped. It happens a lot. When I walked toward the blur of white, it felt like electricity entered every inch of my body.
And that's when I say no.
I would still investigate, unfortunately.
You would.
Yeah.
I'm leaving.
More power to you. The hairs were standing up on my arms and what was left on the top of my head. I stood frozen in perpetual fear as the figure was an old hunched woman in a white robe and she just screamed the most merciful scream.
Are you still investigating?
Maybe a little bit in shock.
Wait, oh, okay. I thought you were about to say maybe for a little bit longer, and I was about to be like, why?
I would be like, ma'am, are you okay?
Yeah.
Maybe.
Your southern politeness would kick in?
Yeah, probably. The guttural scream was so frightening, I actually stopped breathing with sheer fear. I looked up into her face and saw nothing but a blur. The cry was ungodly, like a mother finding out their child is dead. The most scariest scream I have ever witnessed. Adrenaline must have kicked in because I legged it straight back up the lane toward Granny's house and legged it to the front door. I could hear my granny rushing out of Granddad's room, crying. She said, "Grandpa's gone." Imagine he just passed away within the 5 minutes of me leaving and encountering the woman on the lane. I remember telling my elderly aunt and a few family members about the woman, and they said that she was a friend of the family by now.
The old screaming woman is a friend of the family.
I guess he just told the story so many times it just felt like that, right?
Yeah, that's kind of...
Who among us does not have a family friend like that?
I can't answer that. I don't know what to say to that.
As a person with a huge Irish family, there's always someone screaming.
You know, honestly, yeah, your family is
Loud.
overstimulating.
We're loud, yeah.
It can get overstimulating when you have family get-togethers.
I love them.
I love them too, don't get me wrong, but it can still be very overstimulating. I can't see straight whenever I'm around them.
She only appears when someone is going to die. I thought they were taking the piss until my father, a born skeptic and very religious man, confirmed the woman's existence. In some families in Ireland, she would be called the Banshee. I'll never forget her. Not even when I'm on my own deathbed will I ever forget the howl. Thank you.
Could you imagine? Could you imagine, like, in your family, you knew somebody was going to die because a woman in white came and just started screaming at you? This is how you knew somebody was going to die in your family.
It's okay. Not really, but it's
okay.
I wouldn't want someone screaming in my face as I'm dying because I'd just be like, dude, it's already bad enough,
I'm still not really over the name of this Redditor, though.
It's a good name.
That name with that story just don't mix, but, no judgment. Our next story is from FacelessSpirit. I know. Now, honey, when I read this, I want you to think of you having a child, okay?
And that's already spooky.
I know. But I want you to think about what you would do if you were the father of this child having this particular conversation. You'll know what I mean in a minute.
I will do that.
Okay. A bit of background. When my wife was young, her parents and siblings lived with one set of her grandparents. Her grandfather was murdered in the home. It happened in his bedroom upstairs. The room was used primarily as storage for the next 20 plus years. Yeah, I don't think I'd be able to use that room to sleep in again. Her parents tried to sell the house multiple times, but living in a small town, everyone knew and the house would not sell, so they stayed.
Yeah, I wouldn't buy it either if I knew.
I know. And could you imagine just trying to sell that house and your neighbors being like, some man was murdered in there? Don't buy that.
Like, it's just like with the realtor showing people around, and the neighbors are just like,
And that's like the start to a horror film, though. Like, you moved in, you managed to get people from like out of town to move in, and everyone's like, "Oh, so you live in the murder house?"
It always starts off like
Always
that.
starts off like that. Years later, while my wife and I were engaged, there was a murder trial which I attended in support of her family. I saw the crime scene photos, important later. Another few years later, we had 2 kids. The oldest was 6 at the time. My wife's family did not talk about the murder, and our kids did not know about the murder to this day. Oh, wow. They still haven't told them. My father-in-law decided he wanted the room where the murder happened to be the hangout for the grandkids when the family was in town. I know I would not be okay with this. He put sleeping bags and a TV in the room ahead of a holiday and day-long get-togethers. We didn't like it, but stayed silent since the murder was a sore subject. My father-in-law also wanted all the grandkids to sleep in there together. Not agreeing to that.
No, I would be okay with that.
Yeah, I really wouldn't. Regardless of if it's haunted or not, I'm not agreeing to that. We were the first to arrive, and my son went into the room alone. He usually couldn't sit still long at that age, so after a couple of hours, I decided to check in on him. Here was our conversation. During the whole conversation, he was still and rigid and would not look away from the TV. Right there when you have a child that does not stay still.
It's a sign.
It's a sign. Hey, buddy, is everything okay up there? Yeah. Okay, have fun. Daddy, do I have to sleep in here? I don't want to. Why not? I'm not alone.
You don't have to, buddy.
Just right there, nothing else?
No, you don't have to, buddy.
Every hair on my body stood up. Well, yeah, I'm here with you, buddy. No, there's someone in here with us. Are they nice? Mean? A grown-up? A kid? A grown-up. What are they doing right now? They are watching you.
Yeah.
You have never said anything like this at your grandparents' house before, and you've been here a lot. They don't leave this room, and I have never been in here before. Where are they now? Without looking away from the TV, he points to the far corner where his great-grandfather was murdered and said, "They're standing over there. They don't move much. Okay, buddy, you don't have to stay in here." And he left the room with me.
There was a lot of questioning in between that. I'm just saying, like,
no questions
the first
asked.
sign, it'd be like, yeah, you don't have to, buddy.
Yeah, just no questions asked.
I know what happened in that room.
I'd still probably ask a few questions just out of curiosity myself.
I would in another room, maybe.
In another room, I'd let them maybe get out. It's the fact that he just wouldn't look away from the TV the whole time. He's just.
I know. They're here.
They're here. They're watching you.
Poltergeist.
That was that story, though. Very just unsettling.
Very unsettling, very spooky. I would be more okay with him leaving the room.
Yeah. Oh, definitely.
All right. Well, I have my next story. This one comes from EndlessReproachment. A couple of friends and one hot roommate rented a house.
They just had to mention that hot roommate.
It's a Redditor. Come on. Rented a house in the next city over. 1 floor. Had a partially finished basement. The owner started the job but never completed it. Only the outer walls and 1 interior room were put in. The main area was open with a single light bulb hanging from the ceiling. Scattering of old furniture around.
So we're in a partially finished basement. There's only like outer walls?
Yeah, there's only the outer walls.
There's only the outer walls, and we got just a light hanging from the ceiling. Am I picturing that correctly?
Broke.
Yeah. So I'm picturing that correctly, though, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Perfectly. My friends used to use the basement to host parties. Apparently, there was a standing request not to sleep down there, a request that I did not hear. We were maybe 20 or 21 at the time. Well, after one party, people started going to sleep wherever they could find space, and I picked the only open spot I could find, this old couch in that basement. I wake up after just a few hours, must have been 4 or 5 a.m., and I hear a guy and a girl whispering and giggling in the partially built next room. It sounded like someone who was at the party, so I got up to ask them to be quiet, and as soon as I got near that doorway, it stopped. Weird, but I thought maybe I was hearing people still partying upstairs, and it just sounded like whispering through the floor. No biggie. It didn't start back up, so I decided to ignore it and try to go back to sleep. I laid back down. That bright light was shining in my face, and I wasn't sure how to turn it off. I would have broken it.
Oh, yeah, I'm not sleeping with a bright
No,
light.
there's no way. No, it's terrible.
Especially
right?
not after, like, a night of partying.
God, no.
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 Mm-mm.
No.
It's not happening.
Recipe. So I closed my eyes and tried to fall asleep anyways. While I'm laying on the couch with my eyes closed, I saw a shadow move across my eyelids.
No. The voices were enough. But as soon as the shadow comes, absolutely not.
To be fair, if it was like a party and there was like a bunch of people sleeping there, I wouldn't have like immediately thought, oh, okay, spirit.
Did you hear the footsteps? I don't, there was
Just
nothing.
Some drunk asshole wandering around in those times.
And you always hear those footsteps. There was nothing mentioned about footsteps, just a shadow. A shadow and silence is never a good sign.
So at this point, I sit bolt upright and said, nope, 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 nope.
As you should. This person had the right reaction. He had the right reaction. I assume it's a he.
Nope, over and over again as I started walking towards the stairs. The cement floor was a bit uneven, so I'd hear a scuffing noise.
Oh, see, so you do hear footsteps, and he heard none.
Coincidence.
No.
Coincidence. But I'd hear it even when my shoe didn't scrape the floor. I stopped at the bottom of the stairs and listened, and those shuffling footsteps kept going. So I sprinted up the stairs and paused one more time at the top and looked back and saw nothing.
Shocker.
I don't know. I expected to see someone. I waited maybe 10 seconds listening out, and finally, I hear what sounds like a single footfall on wood and creak on that bottom stair.
Oh, again, no.
I shut the door behind me and backed away watching it, but nothing ever came through. I'm frantically trying to find one of my friends who rented the place without waking anyone up, and I find the roommate on an air mattress in the living room, which is weird, but whatever. I start shaking her and go, wake up, your basement is haunted.
It's just such a... I love that response. And it's just the perfect response to this situation.
It really is. She just looks at me like I'm an idiot and says, duh. We told everyone not to sleep down there. And I just went, oh, so can I crash in the corner of the air mattress?
She really just
That's
said,
a good
duh.
response. It's a good response.
Just, you
like,
idiot.
Everyone knew this, man.
This is just like an everyday piece of information.
Terrible. She said I could.
That's
so
good.
The next day, I get all the ghost stories from them about this house. Apparently, the main floor was haunted too, and the basement was just the worst spot for it.
What I need to know is, was this the hot roommate?
I'm pretty sure it was the hot roommate, yes.
She's just
So
like,
at least
you
he got
idiot.
to crash in the air mattress with
Well,
her.
now she
Small
thinks
victory.
he's an idiot. She warned him about the haunted basement, and he didn't listen.
Look, the basement was cool.
$5 everybody knew, and they just all decided not to mention it to this person.
God, it reminds me of my Nan's cellar.
Oh, yeah.
She had an outside cellar like attached to the house.
Oh, yeah, those are always creepy.
It was so creepy. It was unfinished, one single light bulb, a lot of insulated just leaking down, and just dusty and everything. And I hated being in there as a kid. I hated it. And I remember my mom coming in going like, I remember just crashing down here all the time. I'm just like, are you insane?
How would you sleep in that? You know what else it reminds me of? Do you remember the story of that house I lived in, the insurance house after mine burnt, after mine caught fire? Yeah, it reminds me of the basement and cellar there. That's kind of what the description reminds me of.
Yeah, I'm good.
Yeah, same.
I'm good on creepy basements.
Yeah, absolutely. I have one last story, and honestly, all of them kind of creep me out, but this one would probably put me over the edge. It's very short, but there's just something about faces and windows that get me.
Sounds good to me.
This is from Calix12. I've had a few experiences through my life, but here's one I've never shared on here before. I was at my grandparents' house getting changed in the bathroom to go swimming in their pool. That's a plus of a grandparents' house. The bathroom had a small octagon-shaped window. The window was high up and overlooked the porch. I was sitting on the toilet below it when I looked up and saw a man. That's enough, honestly. We could end it right there, and I'm scared.
God, you're so vulnerable, too.
I know. On the toilet? Oh, that's never good. And I saw a man who looked like he was screaming through the window. His skin looked like it was burnt and smothered. His hair was patchy and dark, and his expression never changed.
Oh, what the fuck?
Like, that's horrifying. That is horrifying to me. It was like he was frozen in time. For some reason, I didn't mention it to anyone, just quickly bolted out of the bathroom and went to the one upstairs without a window and did so until my grandparents moved out of that house. The house wasn't old or creepy. You know, I don't think I would mention that one to anyone either because I would just want to erase it from my memory.
I would too, yeah.
Yeah,
For real.
that's just something that we're just going
For
to
real.
change course and we'll never enter that part of the house again if I have to even enter that house again. That one really got me. I didn't like that one.
No, it's pretty horrible.
When I read that, I was just like, I get to read this at 11 o'clock at night and then go to bed.
That's the best time to do it.
Creep myself out and then go to sleep and have nightmares.
The best time.
Yeah, it's going to be fun. All right, Jordan, you have our last story for the night.
So my story is Silence in a Police Box. My dad worked in security. I got into it after he passed. One night I was called on my night off. They need someone to go fill in on another site. I never worked on the site before, but hey, overtime. I accepted.
Yeah?
It was one of my dad's old sites. So it is about 0200. I'm doing a round. I enter one of the buildings and I think I see someone moving up ahead. It is 0200 and the building is locked. There should not be anyone in there. I quietly close the door behind me and creep up for a closer look. At the end of the hall is a security guard, which is odd as I'm the only guard on duty at the time. So I am eyeing this guy, and I notice the uniform. It is for a company that doesn't exist anymore. In fact, it is the company my dad worked for when he was at the site.
I would immediately assume that there was just some vagrant dressed as a security guard to try and get away from it.
I would hope, but I would wonder. So it hits me. That is my dad.
Oh.
Even freakier, man.
Could you imagine seeing your father's ghost at the same job site?
No, not really. I don't know.
Also, I wouldn't want to be haunting my old job sites.
Me neither.
I feel like there's many other places I could haunt that are better.
Me neither. I'm standing there watching him. He's apparently doing a round of the building I am patrolling. So I watch him. He looks at me for about 30 seconds or so and then turns the corner.
Just staring at each other and then he's like, bye.
Yeah, pretty much is like, hey man, this just happens.
It's fine.
I run to catch up with him, but he was gone. Almost 2 years later, I still swear I actually saw him that night. I don't know if it was a ghost, if I was hallucinating because it was one of his old posts and I was emotional, or if maybe somehow time loops exist. And I actually saw him.
I was going to say, I wonder if this is some weird time loopy thing where he was looking at his father before he passed and his father was looking at his son grown up being like, okay. The thing is though, I feel like if you were at least the father in that situation, you'd just be like, I need to check this out. It's my job. Instead, this man just stares at him for 30 seconds and it's just like, you know what? I'm not going to deal with that.
Displacement. He can see him, but the dad can't see him.
Well, why are you just staring for 30 seconds as the dad in that one spot? You just feel it?
A feeling, yeah.
Okay.
And I actually saw him working the site in the past. I honestly don't know, but every time I had the night off and they can't fill anyone in, I jump at it. No longer for the overtime, but with the hope that whatever happened that first time happens again. I have filled in there over 20 times since that encounter, and I haven't seen him since.
Time loop.
Time loop, it has to be.
Has to be a time loop.
Has to be.
For that kind of thing, absolutely. Okay, guys, that's our episode for tonight. Thank you for tuning in. I hope you have trouble sleeping tonight. I hope your dreams are full of creepy men just screaming at you. Good night, everybody. Stay spooky.
Stay spooky, folks.